What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Odds On Favorites. We're back here. Again, I'm Cody. I got Rick and Taylor with me. We got lots of stuff going on in the sports betting world. A lot of stuff to cover, a lot of hot button topics, some good NFL games to look at this week. So we're just going to dive right in here and get to it. We're going to start with our What's Happening section. We're going to talk about some things that are going on in the world of sports betting. First thing I want to talk about is Khalil Mack and the Bears. I want to talk about some of their betting odds. I want to talk about what's changed, if anything. Rick, I believe you did a blog on this, so take it away for me. What can you tell me about Khalil Mack?
Well, first of all, and I think Taylor would agree, I mean, we discussed this a week ago where we were thinking about where he could potentially end up at. You know, and there was other teams like the Packers, the Jets, and stuff that were odds-on favorite to get him. And then Taylor and I both thought, for the most part, that Mack would return to the Raiders. We certainly didn't see the Bears coming out and trading for him. That really, from what I've read, materialized over the last couple of days before the trade happened. And eventually the Raiders just felt that it was a trade they couldn't refuse. And so they traded their best player. I wouldn't call him their franchise, the face of the franchise, because Derek Carr is the face of their franchise. But with Mack being traded, it definitely has an effect on both teams. In my opinion, it does improve the Bears some, and it does hurt the Raiders some. Now, whether or not that equates into more wins and whatnot, well, that's what Taylor and I will discuss here. And if you can share some of those odds and whatnot, we can dig further into
Yeah, I just pulled it up. I'm looking at it now. Looks like on Bovada, their NFC Championships odds shifted from 3,300 to 3,000. Let's see. Biggest odd maker shifted the odds. Chicago wins the NFC count from 21 to 18 to 1, and the Bears divisional winning odds from 9 to 1 to 7 to 1. So a little shift in the Bears' favors with Mack. I mean, is Mack really going to help them that much?
Mack's going to help that defense. I mean, that's going to be a scary defense. They were already a top 10 defense in total defense last year, and then they were in top 10 in a couple other categories as well. So you add Mack to that defense, the monsters of the Midway are back. The Bears are back, at least defensively. Now, offensively, that's the question. They're in a new system, second-year quarterback. Is Allen Robinson going to be fully healthy as the receiver? You know, how's their running game going to be? But I don't believe this is going to matter much. The Bears still will probably finish last in their division. Maybe they edge out the Lions for last place to get into third place in the NFC North. I don't see them even making the playoffs. I know people are starting to talk about, well, the Bears are going back to the playoffs. No, they're not going back to the playoffs. The Saints, the Eagles, the Rams, the Vikings win the divisions. And then the Packers and the Falcons are going to be the wild cards. The Bears don't have a chance to make the playoffs. Not this year. Next year, the Bears have a better chance of getting to the playoffs. So even though there is a Khalil Mack effect on the betting odds, I don't think it's going to translate into more wins other than maybe one win, maybe two at the most. They are a 500 team at best, maybe 9-7.
Taylor, what do you think about – I'm just looking at Rick's article also. I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but in here he said prior to trading for Mack, the Bears were at 101 odds to win the Super Bowl, and then after the trade, some Vegas odds makers shifted them down to 40-1. That seems super drastic to me.
Yeah, that's kind of an overreaction, I think, based on one guy, because football is kind of the ultimate team sport, and obviously Mac's great. He might be the best player in the league at his position, but it's hard to imagine one guy being that transformative for an entire team. I think they will be great defensively, like Rick was saying. They were already 7th in the league last year in sacks, I believe, and obviously Mack is going to help out a lot in that regard. They were just lacking one more edge rusher, so that's why they kind of went all in. They gave up 2 firsts, I believe, and some extra picks down the line. And then they made him the richest NFL defensive player in league history. So obviously they're all in on him. I think you're right, though, Rick, that next year might be the year. There are a lot of question marks with Mitchell Trubisky, second-year QB. His weaponry is a little bit questionable. Allen Robinson, like you were saying, is probably the key for them. I'm kind of intrigued by them. The NFC North's pretty tough, though. Like you were saying, Minnesota is obviously the favorite. Green Bay is right there. Anytime Aaron Rodgers is healthy, they're going to be in the mix.
Yep.
So I think they can be better than the Lions, so good for them. But I think that's going to be a tough road. The NFC is just stacked. And, if they were in the AFC, it might be a little different story. But with the depth of the NFC and that tough division, I think 40-1 is even too optimistic.
So,
that's crazy. Yeah, that's just crazy.
Tell me, guys, are you putting any money on the Bears this year? And if you are, what are you putting money down on?
Oh, no, I'm not touching anything that has to do with the Bears right now. Nothing.
Do we have an over-under number on them?
Nothing in this post that I'm looking at. I'd have to go check out.
Let's see. The one I'm looking at has 5 wins, but I think that might not be updated. 5.5. That's too low.
Last I saw, they were 7 or 7.5 for over/under. That's why I'm thinking right around 8, 9 max. They got a tough schedule.
Yeah, if it's 7.5, then the over has a little bit of intrigue there, but it's kind of dicey. It's not something I feel really confident about.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah, avoid the Bears.
The Bears. All right. Well, thanks for your insight there, guys. Let's switch back to Mac's old team, the Raiders, and talk a little bit about Jon Gruden. Rick, again, I think you did the most. Is he going to be a one and done?
It was funny when I started hearing some social media chatter about it, and I read a few articles about it. That, it really picked up this weekend, Labor Day weekend, when everybody was just blasting the Raiders for trading Khalil Mack, and then also giving up a second-round pick on top of that. People are like, the Raiders are stupid. They're the worst team in the. This is the worst move they could ever make. They called that Saturday when they made the trade on cutdown day. They said the Raiders had the worst cutdown day in the history of the NFL because they traded Mack for that. Bottom line was the team didn't feel like they could match that much money to Mack, and not with a franchise quarterback with Carr getting as much money as he's getting, and then have numerous free agents and holes they had to fill. So they tried to get the most they could from Mack. Once Aaron Donald signed his contract, even the Raiders, even Gruden acknowledged that was pretty much the end of things with Mack because they couldn't afford to give that much money and stuff. But as for Gruden, the only way I see the Raiders firing him is if he pulls a Hugh Jackson and goes 1-15, 0-16. Then I can see it possibly. The thing though is he's getting criticized a lot. They got the oldest roster now. They say his outdated coaching styles, his philosophies, his play calling are going to be outdated. He's getting $100 million over 10 years. So it's like there's a lot of expectations with that. But then when you go and trade arguably your best player, that kind of gives Gruden a little bit of an out there. I can't see him being fired after one season. I understand the criticism and the skepticism over him, but it's Chucky. It's Chucky. You can't fire Chucky. You can trade him, but you can't fire Chucky. On Tampa Bay, who is the worst team in the league, but that's another story.
Yeah, I don't see how you fire a guy you just offered a 10-year deal worth $100 million to. You're still going to have to pay that money, even if he's not employed, and that alone seems like enough to at least give him a little job security. I don't think they're really going to be any good. Losing Mack obviously hurts the defense quite a bit, and there were already plenty of question marks there. But the concerns are real. He hasn't coached in 10 years. He last coached in 2008. He's been in the broadcast booth, so it's not like he's been totally away from the game, and he's obviously at least somewhat aware of the way the game has changed in the last decade. But if he's already getting some kind of criticism about being a little outdated, it's not surprising. He's going to have some growing to do. It's going to be an adjustment for him, too, just to be back in the locker room as the head of a team. So, there are going to be some bumps along the way, and that was always going to be the case. The Raiders just did it because they were desperate. They wanted to bring in a familiar face. They wanted someone to help them transition to Vegas in a couple of years and kind of help build a fan base. He's a popular guy among Raider fans. I know many Raider fans. So, there's a lot there, and I think he has a lot going for him still, even if he has a rocky season. It's almost like unless he commits a felony, Like if he murdered Mark Davis, that might get him fired, but it's going to take a lot for him to get fired. So I'm pretty sure even if they go 1-15 or something like that, I can't imagine him being fired at all.
So there's a prop bet for will Jon Gruden coach the Raiders in 2019? Yes, minus 2,000. No, plus 900. Seems like your guys' analysis shows that take the yes at minus 2,000.
Yeah, it's not even worth betting on.
Yeah.
Minus 2,000. It's not even worth the risk, even for Chucky.
Yeah.
You know, the criticism over him is just it's getting louder though. The only way he's gonna silence that is with wins. And they play the Rams on Monday night to open the season. I don't see them getting a win there. I think it could be ugly. In fact, and then they bumbled the whole Martavis Bryant trade. Now they cut him after wasting a 3rd-round pick on him. Then they trade a 5th-round pick for A.J. McCarron from Buffalo, even though they have 2 other backup quarterbacks that are just as capable. Like, it just seems like everything that could go wrong has gone wrong so far for the Raiders. And they just want to blame my man, Chucky. What a hate from Chucky.
All right. Well, appreciate your insight there, guys. We're going to get into more of a hot button topic, I guess. I'm sure you guys have seen the news, especially if you have a Twitter. Colin Kaepernick and the whole Nike situation. And, I mean, there's some odds out there on whether or not he's going to return to football, with his grievance going to trial, things like that. Let's see, his odds of returning to the NFL as per Bovada in 2018 are yes plus 400, no minus 600. What are we thinking here, guys? Taylor, you got any thoughts here?
I feel like if he was going to be in the NFL at all again, he would already be there. I think he's been gone was last year the first year he was gone?
Yeah.
I mean, there were no shortage of injuries to quarterbacks last year. The Packers lost Aaron Rodgers. The Texans lost Deshaun Watson and so on. If a team needed a guy that badly, and if they were serious about hiring or signing him, they would have done it last year. And now it just kind of keeps snowballing, and it becomes more of a hot button issue. And he's got this lawsuit against the NFL going on, for collusion by the owners to not sign him to a deal. And I just feel like the ship's kind of sailed on that. I think he should be in the NFL based on his talent. He's better than a lot of guys out there that are actually on rosters. Brandon Whedon is still on an NFL roster, for example. I just feel like if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. So as much as he deserves to be a player in the NFL, I don't think it's going to happen.
Give me your thoughts on him being the face of this new Nike endorsement.
It's pretty interesting. He's been on their payroll since 2011. When he was still a player, like that was during his peak year. I think he took the Niners to the Super Bowl that year or the year after. And he's just kind of been laying low for a while, but now they decided to make him a star for the 30th anniversary of Just Do It. Obviously, Nike is a huge corporation that knows what it's doing, and they're doing it to make money, which is what every corporation does with everything they do. And they knew that they would offend people, and they knew that some people would be into it. And the bottom line's making money, and I'm pretty sure they're going to make money on this. So, it's not surprising. It is kind of interesting that Nike is the jersey provider of the NFL, and obviously the NFL is kind of walking on eggshells when it comes to Kaepernick these days. And I think Nike has a new ad coming out. It's going to run during the NFL openers this weekend, tomorrow night, I think, or Thursday night. So, it's interesting. Nike will be fine. People are burning their Nike stuff that they paid for like idiots, as to be expected. I don't know. I can see what they were thinking. They're going to make money on it. People are going to get mad about it, and then people are going to forget. That's the way these things go.
Rick, talk to me, man. Talk to me about Kaepernick returning and his odds, and talk to me about this Nike campaign.
Kaepernick's done with the NFL. There's, before this ad even came out, all last year, as Taylor mentioned, there was numerous possibilities, and Kaepernick's name was floated around and stuff as possibly bringing him in and stuff. Here's the thing. Nike's using Kaepernick right now because it creates that kind of, as you said, a hot button topic. It gives it an edge. It makes people talk about it. Nike started off as this kind of little rebel that could, You know, one of the main athletes they had back in the day when they started, one of my favorite athletes of all time, Steve Prefontaine, and he was a rebel, true and true. You know, running on the track and then fighting to get amateur athletes be able to turn professional in America and stuff like that. So this isn't a surprise at Nike's history. But with that said, if it's good for Nike to use Kaepernick as an image and a brand and stuff, then why is it a bad thing when NFL owners don't want that image associated with their brand, their team? So, you know, it's kind of hypocritical in my opinion. So before this whole advertisement happened, the judge in his lawsuit decided to send his case to trial. So there is something there that the judge wants the NFL to prove or to provide more proof that they didn't collude against them. So that said, also, I don't see anybody in the NFL touching Kaepernick now. Like, you got a lawsuit against the entire NFL, blaming owners of this. Why would they bring him back on any team? And not only that, why wouldn't Kaepernick just go to Canada, tear it up there, and then then they say, okay, you know what? Let's give him a chance. Everybody wants to win. And if Kaepernick can prove he's still a capable quarterback, where his winning is more than his protesting and his social stances, then I don't see why someone wouldn't sign him. But he didn't go that route. And so he's not coming back to the league. Now, you would bet the no on this one. With this ad, with the lawsuit, he's not coming back.
Very cool. Thanks for your insight there, guys. Last thing that I want to talk about for what's happening segment here with Odds On Favorites is I want to talk a little bit about Jim Harbaugh being on the hot seat. Rick, I know you did something on this. Let me pull up some odds that you had. Let's see. Let's see. We have Michigan's head coach minus 200 returns to the NFL as a head coach plus 300. Becomes the head coach of another NCAA football team plus 600. Joins the TV booth as an analyst plus 700. Becomes Baltimore Raven assistant plus 2,000 and head coach of a high school team plus 5,000. Talk to me, Rick. What are we going with?
No way Harbaugh's going to a high school. You know. Okay, so, you know, we alluded to it on our last episode. We were talking about Michigan versus Notre Dame. We were talking about how, you know, Harbaugh is on the hot seat. His seat's starting to warm up because he does not have a winning record against Michigan's big rivals, Notre Dame, Michigan State, Ohio State. And after losing to Notre Dame on Saturday and the way they lost because they just looked like they were inept. Like they didn't have the talent to compete with a team like Notre Dame or anybody else in the Big Ten upper echelon. Play calling was bad. The supposed savior franchise quarterback, he didn't look good at all. And so Harbaugh came under a lot of fire. And with that, just like with Gruden, people start speculating, well, will Harbaugh be back next year? When you look at his record, he's 28-12 since he took over in 2015. He is captain comeback. And the whole thing was to bring Michigan back to the top of the Big Ten when they hired him. The year before he came in 2014, they had a losing record. They haven't won the Big Ten since 2004. So Harbaugh was brought back to save them, basically, to lead them back to the top, to beat Ohio State, to beat their in-state rival Michigan State, and to beat Notre Dame. He's 1-6 against those three teams, or since 2015 when he started. It's not good. He's 4-8 when it comes to one-score games. When the game is decided by one score or less, and he's lost 5 of his last 8 games that were losses by one score. So it's just like he's right there on the fence where it could have teetered the other way, and we could be talking about Harbaugh as one of the best coaches in college football. Instead, now we're speculating whether or not he's going to be around next year. I looked at the schedule. I still believe at worst Michigan will go 8-5. Okay. At best, they'll probably go 10-3, which is what he did in 2015 and 2016. Point is, will they be happy enough if he loses to Michigan State and Ohio State? and still beats Wisconsin and Penn State? Or would they rather see them beat Ohio State, Michigan State, regardless of what they do against the rest of the Big Ten? That is kind of where we're at right now, because honestly, I think that's going to determine how people look at him at the end of the season. In the end, Harbaugh won't quit on Michigan. That's his alma mater. He's not a quitter. If you remember with the 49ers, they gave him the boot. He didn't even have a losing season with them, and he took him to Super Bowl. So my pick is Harbaugh to return next year. That could be the make or break year, but his seat is definitely warming up. If he loses some of these games to like Nebraska, Rutgers, Maryland, SMU, Western Michigan, then we could really be seriously considering him not making it to next year.
I think with a college coach, you want to give him at least 3 years to bring in his recruits, develop his recruits, and then see how the upperclassmen do, the ones that he thought would be the players necessary to bring them back. Obviously, year 3 was last year, 1-8-5, not ideal. His worst season so far. 0-1 so far this year, albeit, at Notre Dame's not an easy matchup for anybody. Like Rick was saying, the schedule shapes up pretty well. They get Wisconsin at home, which is huge. They get Penn State at home, which is huge. But Michigan State and Ohio State are both on the road. Obviously, that's not ideal. But it's kind of similar with Harbaugh and Gruden. Michigan owes him a lot of money. They owe him $7 million, I think, a year over the course of his 7-year deal. This is year 4. It expires after 2021. Michigan obviously can afford to pay a guy to go away, but it's hard to imagine them doing that. I think Michigan believes in him. Obviously, his track record at Stanford and with the Niners speaks for itself. It's been a little rockier than they expected, obviously, but the Big Ten this season is pretty top-heavy. They should be able to take care of Northwestern and Maryland and Rutgers, Indiana. He's got SMU coming up in a few weeks. It's a winnable schedule, if that makes sense. I don't think they're going to be competing for a title or anything, which is obviously their goal at a program like that. But I still think the smart money is on him coming back, at least for next season, barring some kind of huge disaster, like if they go 2-10 or something like that. Obviously, that would be grounds for firing at a program like that. But with all the money he's owed, and with this being year 4, I think it's fair to expect him to survive at least until next season.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate that. That's going to wrap it up for our What's Happening section. Stick around. We are going to do our Gimme Prop section next. So we'll see you guys here in just a second. What's up, you guys? Welcome to Odds On Favorites Gimme Prop segment. We got a few different prop bets here that we're going to talk about. We're going to get some insight from Rick and Taylor again. We're just going to dive right in here. Taylor, let's talk about the prop bet of who will have the best and worst records in the NFL for 2018. I got a few different odds here. Let's see. The most likely, according to, what is this, Bet Online, to have the best records is the Patriots, plus 400. And then I see my Bills down here at the very bottom. The Cleveland Browns above them. That just seems wrong. At what is that, 20,000? Cleveland Browns at 15,000. That just seems wrong. You got the Bucks at 12,500. That's just wrong. Anyways, I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, so here we go. Betting odds for the worst NFL record in 2018. There's the Bills up at the top, plus 600. Browns plus 800. Let's see. And then obviously for the odds for the worst record would be New England Patriots at plus 15,000 and Steelers at 12,500. Okay, sorry. So there's some odds. Taylor, can you give me some insight into who you think is going to be the best, who you think is going to be the worst?
So I think the best record, obviously there are several teams that could do that. The Los Angeles Rams stand out as a good value, plus 800. The Patriots are plus 400, so they have the best odds. But so they do get to pick on an easy division. The AFC East is pretty terrible beyond them. But they're
quit picking on my Bills.
Well, stop fielding a bad team every year. Stop picking them. They play the AFC South, which is improving, and they play the NFC North, which is, like we talked about earlier, that's a pretty deep division. Houston, Jacksonville at the top of the AFC South. Tennessee was a playoff team last year. They play all of them. The Colts should be improved with Andrew Luck back. NFC North, you got the Packers, you got the Vikings, you got the Bears, who we said should be better. Lions are kind of frisky a little bit. So the Patriots at plus 400 kind of feel trappy. I still think that's the smart bet just because they're the Patriots and every year they seem to do it. But the Rams, I think, are a good value, plus 800. I also think the Vikings plus 800 are interesting. They, I think, upgraded quarterback Case Keenum. Obviously had a great season, but I'm not totally convinced that he's not a flash in the pan. Kirk Cousins seems like a more stable option back there. We know their pass catching speaks for itself. Defense was the league's best last year, I believe. So it's a tough division, like I was saying, but Minnesota plus 800 looks interesting too.
That was for the best record. Who do you think is going to have the worst record, Taylor?
The Bills are plus
600.
Dude, stop.
You're fired. You're fired. I'm done. We're done.
I'm going to say the Bengals.
Oh, okay.
Might be a little bit worse. There are a lot of candidates for this, but it's kind of tricky because, the Bills were a playoff team. I don't believe in them at all. But the fact that the Browns are not there for the worst record with the best odds for the worst record is kind of interesting. They've won one game in the last 2 years combined. Everyone said before last season that they looked better. They went on to win 0 games. Everyone's saying this summer they look way better. And until I actually see that they are way better, I'm just going to be inclined to not believe they're way better. So the Browns at plus 800 is not bad value. They play in a pretty tough division too. Cincinnati, I don't fully buy either, but I don't really think they're necessarily the worst team. The Jets exceeded expectations last year, but they should be better with a better quarterback. I kind of think the Seahawks at plus 1,600 is a little sneaky. They don't really have much offensively outside Russell Wilson these days. Their offensive line's in shambles. They lost 2 great defensive backs in the offseason as well. I think the Seahawks' golden era has kind of come to an end. So Seattle having the worst record wouldn't be a total shock. So I think plus 1,600, that's not a bad value either.
I don't think I could take the Browns. They took our quarterback, who took us to the playoffs last year, and then he's going to go to the Browns, and they're going to give the Browns the better odds here. I don't know. I don't understand.
Let's not gloss over the fact that the Bills are starting Nathan Peterman.
Listen.
Hey, Peterman had a better preseason than Tyrod Taylor. And Buffalo beat Cleveland in the preseason, so we'll see.
It's true.
So speaking of the Bills, I'll save that for my rant section.
All right. How about who's your picks for the best and worst season for this prop bet?
Oh, best record. Well, listen, the Patriots, they're always going to be up there. Them and the Steelers in the AFC. And in the NFC, there's, I don't think the Eagles are going to do it again this year. So then it would be like the Vikings, the Rams, the Saints. Those are a couple of the teams that I mentioned and stuff. But I honestly think it's going to be the Rams. I think the Rams, they got most of their tough games at home this year when they play against teams like Minnesota and the Saints and Eagles and stuff. I think their division's going to be worse this year. I'm not sold on the Niners. It'll be physical, but the Rams have more talent than the Cardinals and the Seahawks or the Niners. In fact, they have more talent than all 3 of those teams combined. Okay, so the Rams are going to go at least 5-1 in that division. They got tough games at home, so they can win those games. I think they're going to end up with the best record in the NFL. I love the talent they have on both sides of the ball. And, Taylor and I both talked about it a couple weeks ago, how much we feel the Rams have a chance at being the best team in the NFC. Now, even though I'm picking them to have the best record, I still think the Vikings will edge them out to represent the conference in the NFL or in the Super Bowl. Sorry.
So nobody thinks the Bills are going to have the best record.
No, I can't even go with that. But I will tell you this. I don't believe they'll have the worst record. I think they're going to surprise some teams and some critics and some co-hosts. And so I agree with the fact that the Browns should have been, just because they're the Browns, odds-on favorite to have the worst record. That's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
But my pick for the worst record is without a doubt the Buccaneers. Listen, their best quarterback's going to be gone for the first month of the season, and even when he does come back, he hasn't done anything in his career. Okay, they don't have a whole lot of playmakers on both sides of the ball. Not only that, they're not going to win a game in that division. Carolina, the Saints, and the Falcons are all better. That's 0-6 right there. At least with the Bills, Taylor, they can compete and at least split with the Dolphins and the Jets.
We can beat the Jets.
Yeah, the Buccaneers aren't going to split with anybody. The only game I saw that they could possibly win is against the Browns, and I'm still picking the Browns over them. I honestly think the Bucs will finish like 3-13, 4-12 at best. I gave them, I think, like 2 wins tops. So, in a good season, they get 4. Realistically, I think they'll have 2. I think they'll be the worst team. They don't have a lot of talent. Their talent can't hang. They got a lot of tough games outside of their division. I don't see them doing well at all. Plus, I can't stand Winston. There's just something about the guy, and I don't like his face either.
Are we talking about him or Richie Port?
Oh, let me tell you about Richie Port for a second.
No. Instead of Richie Port, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. Going to switch gears on you here. He's got some prop bets. Let me pull that up. Let's see. He's got a couple. Let's see.
Got a big bank account.
What's that?
I say he's also got a big bank account.
He's got a fat bank account right now. Is he going to live up to his hype? Let's see. What are some prop bets? So prop bets for interceptions thrown, over-under set at 8.5. Touchdowns thrown, it's set at 34.5. And total passing yards set for 4,200 yards.
Yeah.
Let's see. Rick, I'm looking at yours. You took – let's see. Well, I'll let you go through it for me. You took the under interceptions thrown at 8.5. Though that was at minus 125 odds.
Yeah.
Why are you picking that one?
Rodgers is a pretty efficient quarterback. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot. Even in his worst years, he doesn't turn it over compared to other quarterbacks in the league like Eli Manning, Blake Bortles, Phillip Rivers. When we talked about who will lead the NFL in most interceptions, Rodgers' name never comes up. He's a former MVP. He is the face of that franchise. When we mentioned in the Khalil Mack topic that one player isn't going to, make the most of it or win more games and stuff, Aaron Rodgers might be the exception to that rule because just look at what they did last year without him. And now that he's back, dude's going to ball. The Packers should be a wild card team. However, I don't think he's going to break the 4,200 yards for passing. I think he'll come just under. I think they're going to have a better running game this year. They're more committed to Jamal Williams, Ty Montgomery, and then when Jones comes back from his suspension. So I go in the under with that. I think we'll go over with the 34 touchdown passes. I like the fact that Jimmy Graham, who's a red zone target, and then with interceptions, you got to go under 8.5. He's not going to throw more than 8 picks. Even if he throws it 600 times this year like he did 2 years ago, he's still not going to throw more than 8 picks.
Taylor, what are your thoughts, man? You think he could what do you think of his NFL MVP odds at plus 600?
I mean, obviously, he's always a threat for that. I think he's the best player at his position in the league at this point. Like Rick was saying, doesn't throw many picks. His career worst is 13, which is nowhere near NFL leaders in that category year to year. So I think under on, 8 picks, 8.5 picks is a good bet.
8.5, I think it was set at.
Yeah, I think I agree. You go the under there. MVP is tough. Like I was saying earlier, I think the Vikings are going to win this division, and it's tough. I mean, being a wild card team, you can still have an MVP from a wild card team. I trust his offensive line. I think Pro Football Focus had it rated as the 9th or 8th best unit in the league. No more Jordy Nelson, which kind of hurts because they had a pretty great rapport going for a while. But Jimmy Graham is probably the best tight end he's ever played with. Not that that's a high hurdle, but he finally has what seems to be a reliable tight end. Devontae Adams seems ready to take the next step. Randall Cobb's still here. MVP odds at plus 600. I think that's a bet worth taking. There's a lot of profit potential on that. He's going to be one of the front runners every year as long as he stays healthy. So I think plus 600, that's a bet worth taking.
Rick, what about you, man? What do you think about NFL MVP plus 600 for Rodgers?
Ooh, I think that's a tough one. I think there's other – it's a quarterback-driven league. And I think Rodgers has more talent around him than other quarterbacks like Tom – even, I hate to say this, even old man Tom Brady. Tom Brady's throwing to receivers that aren't as talented as Green Bay's. Green Bay should have a better running game and a better offensive line. Green Bay's defense is actually much improved also. Mike Pettin is over there as a coordinator. They retooled their secondary. I have a hard time seeing it. Honestly, what was that? I think I was going to go with Drew Brees. I think I'm picking him for my MVP candidate. I think he's going to have a big year passing-wise this year like he has a couple years back. I think last year was an anomaly with how much they ran the ball. They're more confident in the offense this year, the tools he has around him, the weapons he has around him. The defense is going to be improved even more. I like Drew Brees or Tom Brady more than I like Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay Packers.
Aaron Green Bay Packers.
He is. They should just rename him the Green Bay Rodgers.
Oh, man. All right, well, speaking of Aaron's, how about Aaron Donald? Let's talk about him and some of the prop bets we got on him. He obviously just got signed for a huge contract. So
he has to be hating life right now, Aaron Donald. He wants to be the highest paid defensive player ever. He's holding out year. This is his second year of fighting over a contract. Dude gets the richest contract in history for a day for defense. Khalil Mack gets more than him. Oh, not only did Khalil Mack get more guaranteed money, he got a bigger salary in the long run too.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Well, with that though, let's look at some of the prop bets he has out. I think we have – how many sacks will Aaron Donald have? We have that set at 9.5. We have the over 9.5 at minus 125 and the under at minus 105.
Over.
Taylor says over.
Yeah, I think, the Rams added Ndamukong Suh during the offseason, which is a huge deal. He's in the middle of the defensive line. He's going to take all sorts of pressure off of Donald and Michael Brockers on the edges. He's a handful in the middle, and I think he's just going to collapse opposing lines, and Donald's going to just kind of luck into some one-on-one, and he's going to dominate opposing left tackles. Let's see, he's never had fewer than, I think, 8 sacks in a season so far through 4 years. 9.5 just seems a little bit low. He's the best player, or, right there with Mack and J.J. Watt, best player at his position. I think he's going to go over pretty easily, 9.5 sacks. Just having all that talent around him on defense is going to kind of leave him overlooked a little bit. So I think he could do that in his sleep.
Yeah, I agree. Having Sue as his tag team partner, that's scary. I don't know how offensive linemen aren't peeing their beds at night before they play against the Rams, because that's a scary duo right there. But to go along with what Taylor said, they added 2 Pro Bowl corners in Peters and Talib. These dudes are going to lock down receivers. They're going to be able to play man-to-man with their corners and receivers. And with that means they have more players they can blitz, more people to play in pass protection. That's going to allow the front 4 at least more time to get to the quarterback. And with that means more sacks for Sue, for Donald, for Sue, for Donald, for whoever else. I like the over. I think I don't think he's gonna have he's never had a monster sack season. He's never led the league in sacks. He's always been consistently dominant for the first 4 years of his career. So I don't see him having 15 plus sacks or anything like that. I think I put him at the 10 to 12 range, but it's the way he goes about doing it. It's the dominating the line of scrimmage every game. It's rushing the quarterback to make bad throws and stuff. And I think the Rams couldn't lead the NFL in interceptions because with those corners and that front 4, they're going to be dangerous. That's why I picked them as, they have the best record.
They ranked fourth in sacks last year as a team, and they ranked sixth in interceptions. And they upgraded both facets of the defense in that regard. So
that's scary.
They should be pretty dominant.
Yeah. Hey, if you can get them on your fantasy football team, do it.
Just load up on all Rams.
Load up on the Rams defense and Gurley.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Let's switch gears here a little bit. We've done a lot of NFL. Let's for our last prop, let's talk about NBA division leaders. This week, we'll touch on the Eastern Conference next week. Let's touch on the Western Conference for this week's show, just for time purposes. Taylor, you did a blog on this, so tell me about some of the Western Conference division leaders.
So the West is pretty easy. I think you have two locks there. You have the Southwest Division where the Rockets are minus 450. I think that's a pretty easy bet. You don't really want to bet on minus 450 in the first place, though. And then Pacific Division, you have Golden State minus 1,500, which seems like a lock. They got LeBron in that division now, but it's impossible to imagine LeBron alone with that team overtaking the Warriors in year one. So I think Warriors minus 1,500 is another lock. Not exactly a bold take, but the Northwest is interesting because I think all five teams have a viable chance to win it. Last year it was Portland that won the division. They had the third best record in the Western Conference. But heading into this year, they have the worst odds to win it, plus 600. Oklahoma City and Utah are tied at plus 225. But my value that I like the best is Denver at plus 450. I think they have a legit superstar big man in Nikola Jokic. Two exciting young guards, Gary Harris and Jamal Murray. They added Paul Millsap last year, who kind of battled some injuries. Isaiah Thomas just came in to, fortify the bench with some scoring. So I think the Nuggets at plus 450 are kind of interesting. They're actually the only team in this division that missed the playoffs last year, but I think this is the year they kind of make the leap. You can legitimately make an argument for all five of these teams, so I don't hate any of them. The one I wouldn't take, I think, is Minnesota. They've kind of had some internal strife going on. Jimmy Butler's kind of beefing with Karl Towns, and there were rumors that Karl Towns wanted to leave. And, Tom Thibodeau's trying to build a 2012 Bulls. I think they're interested in Luol Deng. It's just going to be – I don't trust that team at all. So I think if there's one trap, it's Minnesota plus 500. The best value is Denver, though, plus 450.
Rick, any insight here, man?
Well, first of all, I'm surprised that my Kings aren't odds-on favorites to win the division. But, hey,
plus 10,000.
We'll go with Golden State. Yeah, we'll go with Golden State. I like Oklahoma City to win their division, Golden State. But, and Houston should win their division also. But I like the Pelicans. I think they could sneak up on Houston. I think Houston's well, first of all, Houston lost some players in free agency this year. And so I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. I think the Pelicans in the unibrow, I think they have a chance to sneak up on Houston a little bit. I think if Harden misses any significant amount of time, Pelicans can end up sneaking up and taking that division. I like their value also. But, like Taylor said in the beginning, if you're just looking at it on the surface, it's pretty easy to call Houston, Oklahoma City, and Golden State to win their divisions. And the Kings.
If anyone's going to sneak up on the Rockets, it's definitely the Pelicans. We talked last week about why I'm not into the Spurs at all. They have the second best odds, plus 700, but I think they're really trappy. So New Orleans is pretty interesting too.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, that does it for all the props that I want to talk about. Like I said, this was for the NBA division leaders. We just touched on the Western Conference. Next week we'll touch on the Eastern Conference a little bit more. We are about to head into my favorite segment, Spread and Butter. So you're not going to want to miss that, so stay tuned. Up there. All right, guys, welcome to Spread and Butter, my favorite segment that we do here, Odds On Favorites. We are going to take a few NFL games, and we're even maybe going to cover some college ball here. We're going to talk about the spreads. We're going to talk about where you guys can make some money. We're going to dive right in here. I'm going to go, let's do NFL, and then maybe at the end we'll cover a college game. First one we'll do is let's see, what do I like here? Steelers at Browns. We have a 3.5-point spread. Steelers are the favorites, which was the Browns at home as underdogs at 3.5 points. Let's see. Rick, what do you think, man?
You know, we've alluded to the ridiculous hype that the Browns have been, receiving over this offseason and stuff because of their moves and hard knocks and all that. And Pittsburgh, they're 5-4-1 against the spread against Cleveland in their last 10 games. They're 1-4 against the spread when it's 3.5 to 7.5, I think it is. And then they were like 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 overall games. So against the spread, Pittsburgh has not been doing well. But we're talking Cleveland here. And Pittsburgh has owned Cleveland since the Browns came back into the league. Even without Le'Veon Bell, who I don't see playing this week, even if he comes back, he won't be playing as much. You got to go with Pittsburgh here. The line moved. It was closer to 6 points when I saw it last week, I think it was, or earlier this week. And it's down to 3.5. A lot of people are jumping on the Browns, but I don't see it. Until Cleveland actually starts winning, I'm going to go against them all the time. So I'm taking Steelers minus 3.5 on the road versus the Browns.
Taylor, what about you, man?
So earlier in the show, I kind of trashed the Browns and said that I have to believe it or see it before I believe it. But I'm kind of buying in on the hype, at least this week. Okay, listen, the Browns are at home. They haven't won a game in, probably 2 years-ish. They got Tyrod Taylor, who's, middle-of-the-road quarterback. But I think they're going to be carried by their defense. Myles Garrett looked like a monster in the preseason after looking pretty strong as a rookie. Obviously, you don't want to take too much out of the preseason, but I think he's the real deal there. On the other side, the Steelers, like you said, Rick, are going to be probably without Le'Veon Bell, which is a huge thing. He's arguably the best player at his position in the league. Ben Roethlisberger, for whatever reason, for like 4 or 5 years now, has had these really dramatic home-road splits. He's been awesome at home. His passer rating's around 110. On the road, it's about 85, which is like Joe Flacco territory. I think part of it has to do with the Steelers admitting to having a more conservative game plan whenever they hit the road. And then at home, they feel more comfortable airing it out. I wonder how that'll be if Bell's not in there. They might have to air it out more, which kind of gives me pause with this Browns pick. But I don't know, man. I feel like it's going to be kind of happening in there. It's a big rivalry game for the Browns mostly. The fans are going to be into it. Opening day, 3.5 points. I don't know. I'm kind of inclined to take the Browns even on the money line, like straight up to win. I'm just going to do it. Give me the Browns.
If the Browns win, you can celebrate here. You can tell us all I told you so. If they lose, though, you're going to have to throw.
If they win, I can go to Cleveland and get free Bud Light.
There you go.
There you go.
Browns fans are loving you this week.
First time ever. First time ever.
Well, thanks, guys. We're going to jump right in here to another one. We talked about this man earlier, Mr. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. They are taking on the Bears. Packers are home. Favored 7.5 points against the Bears, who are obviously going in as the underdogs at plus 7.5. What are we thinking here, guys? Rick, talk to me here.
As I like to refer to him now, Aaron Green. He's back. The Packers, this is going to be, it's going to be a big game for Lambeau. I believe the numbers were Green Bay was 12-3 against the spread in their last 15 against Chicago. Even with an improved defense and some improved weapons, Chicago still has to prove it on the field. They got a new head coach, new offensive system, new defensive system, new players on both sides of the line. They need to prove it. Unfortunately, they have to play against their rival. This is one of the greatest rivalries in the history of the league. I would be much more comfortable if it was 6.5 points. Like, if I were to bet on this game, I would tease it down to 6.5. That half point doesn't make me feel comfortable, but I'm going with Green Bay here at home. I think they're going to pull away late in the game. I don't think Trubisky is going to be able to outduel Rodgers at Lambeau. Give me Green Bay 7.5.
Taylor, duh Bears or duh Packers?
So we kind of talked about the Bears earlier and how we think they're on the right track, but it might be another year until they're actually a viable contender. Until further notice, though, this division is between Green Bay and Minnesota. I think Green Bay at home on Sunday Night Football is a tough place for any other team to play, especially a team as young and relatively inexperienced as the Bears. First-year head coach. Rodgers has owned them. He's 15-4 in his career against Chicago, 42 touchdown passes, just 9 interceptions. Having Mac on the defense will obviously help Chicago, but I kind of think this one might get out of hand, so I'm pretty comfortable taking Green Bay at minus 7.5. I think it's probably one of the more lopsided games of the weekend.
So you've agreed, duh Packers.
The Packers.
Sweet.
And Aaron
Green. All right, guys. Let's just jump right in here to another game. Let us do the Patriots are at home, -6 versus the Texans, +6 underdogs. Taylor, take it away here for this one.
Okay, so I'm from Houston. I'm a shameless Texans homer, as tragic as that is. They're one of the more miserable franchises in the league. But they're kind of getting some buzz this year. They got Deshaun Watson back and healthy, J.J. Watt back and healthy. Jadeveon Clowney, as far as we know, is also healthy. DeAndre Hopkins is one of the more underrated receivers in the league. On the road at New England is not the way you want to start your season. They played actually in New England last year. Watson was healthy for that game. It was a shootout. It was 36-33 final. It looked like Houston was going to actually win that late, but Tom Brady staged the last-minute drive, and I think it was a Brandon Cooks touchdown that ultimately got them over the top. 6, is it 6.5 or 4.5?
The spread. I have it as just 6.
Okay. New England at home obviously speaks for itself. I might be kind of drinking the Texans Kool-Aid here a little bit and hoping more than actually analyzing it with my brain. But I think 6 is something they can cover. They did it last year. I think they're improved overall from last year. So I think I'm kind of inclined to take Houston to cover. I don't think they'll necessarily win, but I think they can make it a game.
Rick, what do you think, man?
I absolutely agree. They went in last year and played New England really tough with a rookie quarterback, banged up players on both sides of the ball. They've had all offseason to prepare for this. Not only that, you can't forget the fact that who's Brady going to throw the ball to? Hogan and Gronkowski. Burkhead is banged up. They're not sure if he's going to be 100% healthy for the game. I'm not scared with Jeremy Hill or James White as the running backs. I think Houston's defense is going to be phenomenal this year. A healthy Watt is going to change everything. And then offensively, Watson, he's a stud. Him, Hopkins are going to have a great combination. Fuller, he'll get the second corner for the Patriots. The Patriots are going to have a good secondary this year, and they should have a good defense. But, I find it hard. I really want to pick Houston to win the game. I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to go that they cover the spread in New England. I'm going to go 30-28 New England.
I like it. Well, I don't like it, but at least they kept it close.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, guys. We've done a lot of talks about the Rams and about Oakland, so let's talk about their game. The Rams are going to Oakland is the home team. I'm sorry, and Oakland is at home, underdogs at a 4.5-point spread. Rick, what can you tell me about this game?
Chucky is back on Monday Night Football. First week? Are you kidding me? Unfortunately, it's not going to go well for him. The Rams are just too good. They're too good on both sides of the ball. We've already talked about the defense. If you look at it, the Raiders are putting out Marshawn Lynch as their running back. Okay, he's powerful, but he's slow. Doug Martin as their backup. What was his name? The Mighty Hamster.
Muscle Hamster.
Muscle Hamster, yeah. Listen, Sue and Donald are going to eat up these running backs. It's not even going to be fair. And then Jordy Nelson and Amari Cooper are going to get locked down by Peters until the Rams. I don't even know how Oakland's going to be able to keep this within a touchdown. Like, I think the Rams are going to win by double digits. This could be, other than the Chicago Green Bay game and the New Orleans Tampa Bay game, this could be one of the biggest lopsided wins of the week. Talent-wise, Oakland does not even compare to the Rams, and it's going to show up this week. And unfortunately, Chucky's going to get a lot of the blame when really it's talent on the field.
Yeah, I don't really see how this game stays close at all. Like, I know the fans will be into it because, it's Gruden back and second to last season, I believe, before they moved to Vegas. A couple of years ago, the Raiders were a playoff team. They were legitimately good. It looked like they had a Super Bowl chance until Derek Carr got hurt. Last year, things took a turn for the worse, and I think it's kind of trending that way still. I'm not a believer in Lynch. I think he's washed. I think Doug Martin, injury problems and stuff. He's kind of a similar guy. He's kind of more of a bully back than a speed back. I don't really see where's the big playability in this offense? Jordy Nelson's had injuries in his career. Amari Cooper's a drop machine. The offensive line's looking a little bit old. There's not a lot to like here. And they just lost Khalil Mack on the other side. The team's not going to be happy about that. All the players were pissed on Twitter about it and everything. And the Rams, like we've been saying for weeks, have the most loaded roster we've seen. I think the coaching staff is awesome. Sean McVay knows what he's doing. He's innovative. I think Jon Gruden's lacking in that department. So I just don't see how they keep up on either side of the ball. And as unfortunate as it is for Raider Nation, I think it's going to be a pretty brutal start. So I think that's a easy cover for the Rams there.
Yeah.
All right. Very cool, guys. Thank you. That's going to cover for NFL games. Just for time's sake, we're only going to get into one other one. We'll do one college ball. Let's talk about USC versus Stanford. Stanford is the home team going in. We have 5.5 point spread. Stanford is favored, and USC is coming in at the underdogs. Taylor, what do you got for me, man?
I think this one's pretty clearly Stanford. USC always has a lot of hype, but it seems like in recent years they haven't really been able to capitalize on that so much. New quarterback in there, JT Daniels. He played well last week against UNLV, but that's UNLV at home, not exactly Stanford on the road. We talked about Bryce Love last week, Heisman candidate. They blew San Diego State out of the water last week. Stanford at home usually is a pretty good bet, and I think they have the overall talent edge, less certainty at quarterback for USC. I think Stanford's the pick here. Not that it's bold, but I'm pretty confident in Stanford.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a couple reasons why. USC was only up 19-14 on UNLV last week by the time they hit the fourth quarter. Their new quarterback didn't do anything until the fourth quarter, so all their numbers looked better on paper after they got into the fourth quarter. USC put up 24 points in the fourth quarter. They end up pulling away. But their defense gave up like 300 yards rushing. Okay, 300 yards rushing to UNLV. Now they go to Stanford, who's known to have a power running game, who has one of the best running backs in the country. You don't think they're going to get at least 150 on the ground? What Stanford also proved last week was they can throw the ball. When San Diego State was taking away the run game, they aired it out. Costello threw for over 300 yards. That's got to scare USC. Because if Stanford has that type of versatility on offense, then you combine with their solid defense. Their defense held San Diego State to 10 points. 7 points first quarter, 3 points the rest of the game. And they shut down what was supposed to be a solid offense. Stanford, USC has won the last couple games, but Stanford's like 3-1 or something like that the last 4 times they've played in Stanford. I'm going with Stanford in this one. I think the talent level is going to be better than USC. I think USC has lost too much talent from last year, namely their quarterback, running back, and on defense. I don't see how they're going to be able to hang with Stanford for 4 quarters. I think this is the week where Stanford establishes themselves as the odds-on favorite to win the Pac-12. With Washington losing last week, Stanford winning this week, I think Stanford's going to start showing the country they're the team to pick in the West Coast.
The fact that Love only had 29 yards on 18 carries and they still won easily, that's scary for anybody else.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. When you hold Love to virtually nothing, not even 2 yards a carry, and they could still win by 3 or 4 scores, come on now. USC was at home, and they looked terrible against UNLV. UNLV, of all teams. This isn't basketball. This is football. And they looked terrible for 3 quarters. So give me Stanford. I think Stanford will win by at least. This is one of those games, though, where you have to keep in mind, because this is a long rivalry here. This is like the 98th time they played against each other. This is either going to be a really close game or Stanford wins in a blowout. So I think Tanner pretty comfortable. It's going to go closer to a touchdown or more for Stanford.
Very cool. Awesome, guys. That's all I had that I wanted to touch on. That does it for our spread and butter segment here, odds on favorites. Next, we are going to go into Rick's Rants here next. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Maybe Rick will talk to you a little bit more about Richie Port. We'll see. All right, guys. Welcome back to Odds on Favorites. We are here for Rick's Rant. This is probably Rick's favorite segment that we do. I am going to let Rick talk about anything that he wants, sports-wise, sports betting-wise, whatever he wants, for 2.5 minutes. Last week we did 3 minutes. We're going to cut him off a little bit shorter this time so we can really start getting into it here. So, Rick, I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes on the clock. You can talk about whatever you want. Let's go. Starting now.
Okay, here we go. We're ready. Now, listen. I have to give you an update on Richie freaking Port. He is an hour and 12 minutes behind the leader coming into today's stage. I just quickly checked a little bit before we went on air. It was pretty much status quo with all the top guys. But bottom line is this. I told you so. I told you so, and I told you so. Not only that, I told you also Team Movie Star was the strongest team there, and to watch out for Nairo Quintana. Well, Quintana is sitting 14 seconds back in third place. His teammate is 1 second back of the lead in second place. There you go. I just had to get that off my chest before I get into my actual rant portion of this rant. I would like, and Cody, this is for you too, I would like for all the haters to quit hating on the Buffalo Bills. I mean, seriously, okay? Listen, yes, they have some inexperience at quarterback. Okay, that's fine. But it's not like Tyrod Taylor lit it up for us last year, okay? He didn't do anything. He didn't win one game for us last year. 2 years ago, he played well and he won a couple games. They still finished with a losing record. Last year, he missed a couple games and they ended up going to the playoffs. Now he's in Cleveland. And now all of a sudden, Cleveland's going to be this great team that Taylor picks to cover the spread against the Steelers, that Taylor thinks he's going to get free beer this weekend. Give me a break. Listen. I said back in July, take Peterman because Peterman was going to win the quarterback competition. And at that time, he was plus 700 odds. If you would have listened to me then, you could have made some money. Now I'm telling you guys now to listen to me now. Buffalo, they might have some inexperience at quarterback. Their line is a little shaky in pass protection. They have better depth at receiver, better depth at tight end, better depth at running back. They have a better defense this year. Their secondary is top 10 in the league. Edmonds is going to be a beast at their middle linebacker. And whatever his name is, I can't even pronounce it, he's going to shut down the run with Kyle Williams right next to him. Listen, quit hating on Buffalo. It's okay. It's okay. Listen, we like when the underdog wins. Root for Peterman. It is okay. Yes, he had one bad day. Have you not had a bad day in your life? Have you not had a bad day at work? Huh, Cody? Taylor?
2.5.
Wait, no.
I don't want to cut you off. Listen, I don't want to cut you off. I want to keep hearing you say nice things about the Bills. But, rules are rules. 2.5 minutes. If you want to hear Rick talk more about the Bills, you can hit him up on Twitter. Handles down below. I'm definitely going to do that because I love hearing what Rick has to say about the Bills and, not what Taylor has to say hating on my Bills. So, actually, Taylor, didn't I fire you earlier? What are you still doing here?
I'm back.
Hate.
Awesome. Well, guys, that does it for Rick's Rants portion of Odds On Favorites. We are going to jump into, let's see, easy money. Let's get into easy money right now. All right, guys, this is our last segment of the day, easy money here at Odds On Favorites. We are going to identify some easy money targets that we can bet on this week. I know people want to know where the easy money is, where the smart money is, where they want to put their money down on. That's what they're looking to you guys for, Rick and Taylor. Hoping you can give me your easy picks of the week. Rick, what are you looking at this week? What are you going to put the easy money down on?
Okay, here we go. Listen, one of my favorite bets to take each and every week is the driver matchups for NASCAR. Yes, we're going to NASCAR here. I love it because you either get one-on-one or you get a group of drivers and you have to pick the one that's going to finish with the highest finish in the race. This week, we're going with Jimmy Johnson. Listen, one of our odds makers has Jimmy Johnson matched up against Eric Almirola, Daniel Suarez, and Alex Bowman. All of them are competing for the last couple spots to get into the playoffs. This is the last race of the regular season, and it happens to be at Indianapolis, the same place that Jimmy Johnson has won 4 times. Okay, he also has a half dozen top 5 finishes, a half dozen top 10 finishes, and he's competing this week to make sure he makes the playoffs. A bad race this weekend, someone else winning the race outside of the top 16, and Jimmy's out. Okay, we got a 7-time former champ trying to make it. Easy money. Pick him to finish higher than Eric Almirola, Daniel Suarez, and Bowman, who's his teammate. Go with Jimmy Johnson here. Easy money. Listen to me. Easy money. Jimmy Johnson.
So, all right, guys, you heard it here. If you take that bet and you lose, go trash Rick on Twitter. Do it. I think it'd be funny. I don't know anything about NASCAR, so I don't know if I'd take his word for it, but yeah, try it out if you want. Taylor, easy money. Don't talk about NASCAR.
No problem there. Talked about the Rams earlier. I think they're your easy money bet, but I'm not going to just repeat the same thing, so I have another one. I like the Broncos -2.5 at home.
I thought you were starting that with the Browns. I heard, but I was like, if you say the Browns.
The Browns are never easy money unless you're picking the opponent, in which case they are. Seahawks, I think I alluded to earlier, them kind of being past their prime a little bit. I think they're going to be rebuilding here. They've lost a ton of talent from their defense. They lost Richard Sherman. They lost Cam Chancellor, retired. They lost Cliff Averill. They lost Michael Bennett. They lost Jeremy Lane. Earl Thomas just reported to camp today, so he may or may not play this weekend. If he's out, obviously it's another boost to Denver. I just think the Seahawks are going to be kind of trash. So I think Denver at home, first game of the season, Case Keenum in there. Hopefully they've solved their quarterback problem from last year. He's got decent pass-catching talent. Royce Freeman looks like a serviceable rookie running back. I'm less sold on the team's defense, which kind of gives me pause, but Seattle's holes on defense plus their lack of offensive talent, I just feel like this is kind of an easy bet. So Denver only -2.5. All it takes is a field goal. I think the Broncos to cover is pretty easy here.
All right. Well, there you guys go. If you bet on the Broncos, and you lose, go trash Taylor on Twitter. And if you win, go hit up their Twitter and say some nice things about them too. Don't just trash people on Twitter, even though that's a lot more fun to do. All right, guys.
That's all they do.
All right, listen, guys. That is it for Odds On Favorites for this week. I really hope you guys have enjoyed. Be sure to tune in next week. We're going to hit up another We're going to have another podcast here weekly. Try to get this, guys, for you. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Every week, you can watch us here on YouTube. Hit us up on iTunes. We're going to be uploading there. And then, as always, you can refer to gamblingsites.org. Where all of the articles that we've referenced were written on by yours truly, Rick and Taylor. That is it, guys. Again, hope you enjoyed. We'll catch you next time.